Yo, what's up? Thanks for checking out the Paycheck to Profit podcast. I'm your host, Robert Johnson. Today, we're going to connect with an agent investor here in the Northwest, straight out of Bremerton, Washington. I'm excited to have him on the show today to share more about what being an agent is really like and how he's using his spare time to flip homes, run rentals, and more. So, Corey Alan Scheeler, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yeah. I want to change it up a little bit from my normal flow, but let's actually go into what being an agent is like right now. Let's talk about what you're doing now. And
Sure.
if you could share a little bit of information about if you're working with a brokerage or if you're the broker, how that works.
Sure. So I'm a real estate agent in different states. You can be called a broker only if you're a managing broker. And in some cases, you can be called a broker just being an agent. So they are different things, but I'm not a managing broker. I'm just a real estate agent. Every agent is required to hang their license with a brokerage in their area. And there's a lot of factors that go into that, between who you're going to be working with closely, what kind of clients and leads they can provide you, how much, monetarily the split is that you pay them. But so all things considered, I first joined Fathom back in October when I got my license, October of 22, and it worked well. I was on a team, and I realized quickly that I didn't really care for the team structure if it wasn't providing enough business, basically. So that
Okay.
It didn't quite work out for me. I didn't quite enjoy it. I really wanted to do something that was on my own, I could control and manage. And so I joined Pelago, which is a brokerage here in the Northwest that is fully virtual. The splits and what I pay is really low, and kind of in exchange, they don't provide too much other than the necessary services, which for me, I'm okay with. Some people need a lot of education and a lot of frills, and they're willing to pay for that. But for me, this works out really nicely. I get to do what I want and build my own brand and all of those things.
Okay, so your broker is kind of like a franchise and sort, right? Pay into this program, they return marketing, training, all of the resources and tools that you could have to go get started with being an agent. Is that
Right.
kind of how it works?
Yeah, and it is required as somebody who gets their license to be a real estate agent. They are required to hang their license with a brokerage. You can't
Right.
not do it. You need to have, for good reason, you need to have a managing broker that can look over all of these important contracts for these, people around you that are making the biggest financial purchase of their life. And so
Sure.
having that backup and that review process, as well as staying in line with state and federal laws for doing these transactions is really important. So they play a very pivotal role in what we do, but they all will provide extras, and that's really where, as a new agent, you decide what's important to you.
Okay, I got it. So, the ones out there that a lot of people are familiar with, Keller Williams, Hassan, Sotheby, and you said the one you're working with is completely virtual. I don't know that I've seen another one like that, so that's cool.
Yeah. EXP is also like that, where an
Oh, okay.
agent can pay for an office for themselves, and there's advertising requirements where I can't put just my name on a listing sign. I have to show who the the brokerage is. But you can do that as an agent and have your own office, just like an insurance broker can have their own office.
Okay.
So that can come out of my pocket, or like Windermere or Keller Williams the brokerage will have their own offices in different places, and then their agents will pay for an office office fee to be able to utilize a room in that building.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. So I'm really curious, like what does being an agent really look like scheduling wise? Like it seems like on one hand, from my perspective, I feel like, there's maybe a lot of flexibility, but then on the other hand, you are tied to certain, commitments for whether you're selling or helping someone buy a home. You could be locked up quite a bit. So I really like to get your opinion on what that really looks like from your
Sure.
perspective.
Sure. So there are it is tough to explain. It's very, very flexible, but you use the word commitment. I use the word responsibilities. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
you are serving your clients, and you are there for them day and night a lot of times, if something is necessary. And there are periods in contracts that are very important. There are times when different forms with the contract need to be sent through, to make sure that you're holding up kind of your end of the bargain on the contract. And it's important to be as organized as possible. And you have to know what day next week that that inspection period is going to end, and you need to have your response in. But outside of those hard lines, it is very flexible. So a lot of times, you're having to prioritize and decide, every 3 hours of the day what the most important things are that need to get done, and then ensuring that things are getting done on time. So it's flexible, but there are those hard due dates and times.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. The way you explained it, uh, talking through all of the, more of a responsibility than a commitment. You're 100% accurate in that. And that's a way better way to say it. But putting out all of these different tasks or responsibilities, throughout a week or a month, I'm just curious, like what, how do you manage that? Do you have somebody helping you? Or are you the one doing that solely?
So a lot of agents will have enough deals at some point where they will have an assistant. A lot of agents will also have a TC, a transaction coordinator, to
Hmm.
where at the time that you and your clients get under contract, on with another buyer or seller on a piece of property, that transaction coordinator will take over from there and run the transaction. So it frees up the agent to do kind of what they need to do from the business side, which is find more clients.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, are you doing just listings yourself, or are you on the buyer side as well, typically?
So I do both buyers and sellers. And right now, I'm actually focused more on the buying side.
Oh, okay.
It's there's pros and cons kind of on as the agent looking at it to either one. A lot of agents recognize that buyers take a lot of time out of your schedule because you are the one that is scheduling showings and going to show these different houses and spending a lot of time doing that. It is a lot of time, and you can't avoid that. With a listing, you can get a lot more streamlined, and it allows you to do a greater number of transactions in the same amount of time. But I really enjoy the buyer side, and I decided to be an agent because of issues that I felt I had, when I purchased my own properties, and the things I wish I had known and been told that I wasn't. And not only do I enjoy seeing the excitement on somebody's face when they buy an investment property or buy their first home, but I want to protect people who are making these big purchases by providing all of the options to them, not just what a lot of agents might do, which is give them kind of the easiest route for the agent, to try and just get the transaction through as fast as possible. Because for a lot of people, speed is the name of the game, and
Right.
obviously, the more you can do in the period of time in the year, the more money you're going to make.
Right. Yeah, and I imagine right now, or at least over the last 12, 18 months, it's been a little bit more challenging. I think that's a perception right now, is that, a buyer's agent is maybe not as necessary. There's agents getting a lot of heat about it, really, like, what do you provide? And so I I have a strong feeling that agents that are like yourself, where you do take the time to really go through a property, go through the actual the personal goals and really walk through what that looks like. I think that's where an agent absolutely deserves their commission, and they earn it every step of the way. But like you said, there's people out there cutting corners where they're just proving the point, unfortunately, and they're making it hard for the good agents out there.
Sure, sure. I think, even if you're talking about, any other real profession, you're going to have those that cut corners in anything, and you're going to have
Right.
those are the ones that you can trust, right? It's just like finding, a primary care physician. You probably will go through several before you find the one that you know and trust and are willing to put your life in their hands all the time. And not that real estate is like that, right? Life or death, but um, it's important to be able to trust who you're working with, and it is easy on the buyer side or the seller side to say, oh, I'm going to do it myself, and that's totally fine. More power to you if you can navigate the contracts and know how to prep your home properly for sale, or know what you need to look for as a buyer in a home that you're going to buy. But the reality of the situation is that it you just don't know those things when you go to buy your first home. um,
Yeah,
and
totally.
maybe even your second home, it's you bought the last one 10 years ago, and so
Yeah.
do you remember what to look for, and do you know what the contracts need to look like, and the important dates that we're going to get to where your earnest money is going to be non-refundable and you're going to lose it, and all these things to navigate. So it is easy to, when you don't know all the things that an agent does, to feel that they don't provide a lot, for sure. And um, there are some agents, like you said, that might oversimplify the process and not really go the full length for their clients, which is sad. And but they do. It is very important to find somebody that can help you navigate the process of the transaction. And the great thing is that, unless most of all the times, the compensation doesn't come from the pocket of the buyer client.
Right.
What happens is that the listing agent offers a portion of their commission to the buyer's agent, who brings them a buyer that will close on the home. So, from the buyer's side, since most any of the time they're not going to be paying out of pocket, it just makes sense to have somebody in your corner to fight with you through the negotiations. There's a lot to it, and I really enjoy that process. I like educating people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's a lot of nuances that you hit on too, which it just goes to show that it is important to have somebody in your corner when you're a buyer. Like, I'd love to know, what should a buyer right now look out for in an agent? What do they need to look out for to make sure that they're getting an agent that's going to have their best interests?
Okay. I I find that I always want to work with people that I get along with closely. Um, and you can, based off normally like one conversation with a person, if you're a good fit with that person. And then there's trust, and trust is a hard one to figure out on the first conversation or two. Um, it's also important that your agent has enough experience, and understands what they're doing, and maybe even in the event that they were newer and had a few transactions under their belt, you need to know that they have people around them that they can go to find answers in case they don't know it. And so it's not always people know everything, and behind the curtain, we work together with other agents all the time in finding solutions to problems that come up. So, nobody knows everything, regardless of how long they've been doing real estate. And
Yeah.
so knowledge and trust for sure. A lot of people think that it's really important that their agent has a large number of years as an agent, to make them feel like their agent has enough experience. And I find that those with the most time, a lot of times, are really entrapped in doing things a certain way and may not provide you all of the options that are available, that maybe might make the difference for you as a buyer. So, having time under the belt is important, but I actually think it's significantly less important than a lot of people think.
Yeah, that's great. Great. Yeah, the idea of, getting to know somebody in a call or two and figuring out if they're the right person, that's hard. So,
Right.
that first one that you said, just kind of like the first filter is, do you think that you can actually get along with them? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's a big deal. Like, you're going to be walking and showing homes, and just having a good rapport is really important.
Yeah, you work very closely together for sometimes a very long time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that relationship usually turn into pretty good friends by the end of the transaction. And so, if it's not a person that you can continue, be a friend with and want to continue being friends with, then it very clearly shows that you're a little bit incompatible.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. So I'm curious, in your time as an agent, have you done any creative finance deals?
So we did do one, and it was when I was on the team with Fathom. So
Okay.
we were calling it expired homeowners that
Uh-huh.
had their home on the market, and it basically they didn't find a buyer, and we called this one gentleman, and he was in Tacoma. Um, he purchased VA about a year and a half prior. It was about 2.5 years after he filed bankruptcy.
Oh.
Middle-aged gentleman, and he purchased it VA. He, this was kind of at the top of the market. He overpaid, and when he put it on market, basically the spread that you need to have is, just because you owe $400,000 doesn't mean that you can sell it for 400 or even 420. When you use an agent, right, especially as a listing agent, there's commissions to be paid, and then there's like non-negotiable fees that are like closing costs that you have to pay. Both buyer and seller side are going to have closing costs, so there's built-in cost to selling a home. And when you don't have enough spread, that's when you get into the position of no buyer is going to pay that much money for the home. So what do you do? And we called him up and had a conversation with him, and he had a daughter. I think she lived in Nevada or something, and um, she something happened in her life where he needed to basically move there and help her.
Mm.
And so he decided to rent his home to somebody that he knew, from where he was working. And so, as any investor or landlord that's listening probably knows, um, a lot of times the people who will take advantage of you are the people that you think won't. And um, when you rent your home or your property to somebody, um, those friends will, if something happens in their life, they are going to feel that it's okay to short you on rent or not pay because you're friends. And as unfortunate as that is, it really is the truth. And he had this guy move in, and basically he ended up getting a separation from his wife, and so he no longer could afford the rent by himself, but he had nowhere to go, so he didn't pay rent and he stayed. So this guy that had just gotten was
Sorry. How
suddenly,
many months? How many months did he stay there without paying rent?
I think it was about 3 months or
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But this poor guy didn't have the money to continue paying his what was it, $2,200 mortgage every month with no money coming in and having to move down to Nevada. So
Right.
what we did is we ended up doing a wrap on it, and a lot of people will do a sandwich wrap. They'll stay in the middle of the transaction and make passive income for as long as the wrap is in effect. But we just helped service him and help him with it, and we ended up we listed it as a wrap transaction, and we found a buyer for it, and we utilized an RMLO to ensure that the purchaser had the ability to pay the amount that was going to be charged per month. And then basically instead of being completely underwater on this house, we were able to get the renter to move out. We cleaned it for him, and then got paid to get the pictures taken. And we were able to get him $10,000 on the upfront payment, as well as $500 a month for the next 30 years. And he sold it at a higher purchase price. So in 3 ways, he got to make money in a market where there was no other way. So it was very, very
Dude.
effective for him. And he was able to make his move and take care of his daughter, as well as have peace of mind that he has somebody in the house that is taking care of it, is not just a renter. He's not going to have turnover, and he's going to have money in his pocket up front and make a steady stream every single month, and can guarantee on it.
Dude, that right there is exactly why creative finance is so powerful
Right.
and underutilized. I think, there's a lot of agents that don't understand these concepts, but
Right.
perfect example of the reason why somebody would need to do that too. And I get asked a lot, why would anybody do this? That
Mm-hmm.
right there is why.
Right. Right. Oh, I was just going to say, it's not for every instance,
Right.
and going back to talking about, finding an agent that has 20 years under their belt or 30 years under their belt as an agent doesn't mean that, very clearly, obviously, that agent that he used before didn't know any of this side of real estate. And so it just goes to show that not everybody knows everything, and so finding
Yeah.
somebody with the solution is important.
Yeah. Either they know the solution, or like you called it out earlier, they have access to people that can help.
Right.
Can you back up really quick and explain what a wrap is for the people listening that might not know what that is in real estate?
Sure. So it's where a wrap is where you have a current lien on the property, a mortgage, and if the mortgage is $400,000, the mortgage stays in the seller's name, but the buyer will pay through a third party servicer, and you create a spread. So let's say it's $2,000 a month on the mortgage. You wrap it at $2,500 a month to the end buyer, and that end buyer pays the $2,500 a month. The third party servicer services the note and sends $2,000 to the mortgage company, and then we'll send you the $500 or whatever the number is. And so that note stays in place with the current mortgage company, so that
Right.
doesn't change at all. And so somebody can actually, as the end buyer, take advantage of the low interest rates that we've been having. So it's providing a really strong solution for buyers who maybe are priced out of a $400,000 range, and with interest rates can only afford 300 or something like that. They can actually increase their purchase power. The only downside is that when we talked about all of those costs that are built in to purchasing a home or selling a home, those are all still there. So
Sure.
there are funds that have to be brought to the table when you do this. But if you're in a position where you have 20,000 or 30,000 saved up, this can be, a real game changer. We utilized
Yeah.
an RMLO, and not every transaction has to have that. But we did it for the client to ensure that the buyer was a strong buyer.
Sure. Yeah. So you essentially, well, you actually didn't buy the property. You were helping it. So
We helped them sell the
this is,
property.
yeah, this
We
is,
found
yeah, this
another
is a
buyer.
funny situation because like I look at properties to buy subject to, which is
Sure.
exactly what you're saying, where you take over the monthly payments. You didn't actually do that part of the process. You just came in the part where you helped connect that buyer to the seller where they can wrap it around.
Right, right.
That's cool.
And through the biggest tool that, a lot of agents have, which is being able to put it on the MLS and have
Right.
the world be able to see it. Um, so yeah, a lot on the investing side, it's really cool finding a property where you can actually make the spread in between both. So, if there was no money down to the seller and it was a takeover of 400,000 on the note, you could take it over, and let's say it was at a 3% interest rate, you could take it over with those terms, and then you can wrap it to another buyer and create spread all three ways. You can have them pay you a $20,000 down payment, so you can collect 20,000 off this transaction, as well as you can adjust the interest rate. So you could wrap it to an end buyer at 5% interest. You could have a balloon at some point, or you could have it for 30 years. And so that's called a sandwich, but it's what a lot of investors will do. So it helps the seller get out of the position that they're in, and then it also helps a buyer get into a home that, for a lot of people, they can't qualify through a bank. So it helps both parties, and as the investor, you get paid for helping out both parties, and all of that. So
Yeah. No, I love it. That's awesome. So I kind of wanted to get into what you're doing on the side now, and speaking
sure.
of investors and things like that. So why don't you give us a breakdown of what you've done with your investments, like how many properties you've purchased or flipped, and if you're running any rentals yourself.
Sure. Well, I was in the Navy for 8.5 years, and I got out with a non-conforming duplex here in Bremerton, as well as a fourplex, with an extra unit. So I won't get into the whole story of the extra unit, but it has five, but it was sold as four. So I basically sold my home, that I had purchased, right at the end of 2016. I renovated that and I sold it. I bought conventional on the duplex, and then I used my VA loan before I got out and purchased the fourplex. So um, after I purchased those, I got out of the Navy in January. After I had purchased the fourplex in October, and I worked on renovating units. That was that was the first thing I had to do. And so getting one renovated, and getting it rented to market at market rate, and then moving on to the next one. And so I got two of those done. A third was a complete demo, like a complete gut job. And then the fourth one, I ended up my wife and I moved to the fourplex because you're required to have intention of moving in within 60 days, and we renovated the downstairs unit of the duplex, and then rented that to market. So I've spent a lot of time renovating, cosmetically things, as well as doing some plumbing work and electrical work and things like that. So I learned a great deal doing that. And then just last summer, right at the end of summer, I purchased a mobile home in a mobile home park. And so this was a way that I could utilize my own funds to purchase and renovate, instead of having to do, hard money loan and all of that. And I knew that at the price point that I purchased this at, it was a lot safer and less risk for me. I I don't have all of the people lined up to do a full house in 3 months, like a lot of flippers will need to
Sure.
do. And when you have hard money on something, I mean, you really are
You have
against
to
the
move
clock. So
fast.
yeah, this gave me a lot of freedom to be able to, renovate it myself. And it's still a work in progress. It was my first roof I've done. I got all the exterior stuff pretty much done before the rain hit. And then I got flooring in there now. So yeah, so it's coming along.
Nice.
That's so the constant upgrade of units and improving things and working on the mobile takes all the rest of my time outside of being an agent. So it's not a
Right.
great multitude of things going on, but it certainly keeps me busy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you still own all those units. Are you renting
Mhm.
out some of those now in the
Yep.
quad? And
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Almost. I have one that is left, and is currently being worked on. I'm still renovating that, but I just got drywall and texture finished last week, so I'm pumped for that to be able to finish
Nice.
that one up as well. But other than that, everything is rented, and my wife and I moved back to Sixth Street in the upstairs, and so like it's working out. We've been living for free for years now,
Yeah.
and it's great. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about ultimate house hacking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like multi units. Um, it's as we've seen in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Um, there was a time when the numbers lined up to be able to buy a single family and be able to move out a year later and rent it and make a little bit of spread and then be fine. But now with interest rates, I mean, there's just no way at all. And then that kind of bumps through the unit counts. So as we get, duplexes were working really well too. Back when I bought this one, and now with the prices of duplex and the interest rates, you can't, you really, it's hard to buy a duplex and then be able to rent out both sides and, make any sort of margin on it. So, um, but yeah, I like multis because you, you, you have the ability, if you buy right, to really add value to them and have a much better spread than you would really be able to on a single family.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does buying right look like for you? What does that look like in Bremerton? I assume that's where all of this is, right? It's all in that
Mhm.
Bremerton area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, well, for me, um, buying right is a property that the work that's needed are things that I can do or figure out. I'm not afraid to learn how to do things, and I'm totally willing to take that on. But if there's so much to be done, there's only so much I can put on my plate. I guess it's the best way to put it. So it has to be something within my capabilities of both, what I can do and the amount of time that I have, um, but also ensuring that you're running the numbers before you buy it, and knowing what you have to do to give yourself margin that you need to at least be safe. And that doesn't mean breaking even,
Yeah.
because you will have furnaces and water heaters go out, as well as you know needing to paint, needing to do this and that. So, um, but probably having $200 to $300 a door spread between what the debt service is and what you're bringing in on rent is what I hear a lot from people. And some people are comfortable with that. It's too slim for me, but that's a pretty generic number that I hear from a lot of different investors, especially as they um, start getting into owning more things. And when you have 60 that have a $300 spread, it's a lot easier to be okay
Yeah.
with that than to have two of them that have a $300 spread, and then you have something that goes out, because then, I mean, anything happens, your profit from the year is gone. So
Yeah. Totally.
yeah.
So a couple things. It sounds like you're self-managing this,
Yes.
or all the units, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And um, I wanted to ask too, like what does that time look like for, per day or per week? Like
Sure.
how do you manage everything with your personal, the agent, and now you're managing properties as well?
Sure. So when I purchased, I had to have a property manager, and that was a requirement by the lender because I had no landlord experience.
Gotcha.
So that may be something that a buyer runs into. It's not a big deal. I was, because I bought the fourplex and I had him sign on for the duplex as well. Basically, his requirement was anybody that I'm managing 4 units or above. It's 8% instead of 10% of the rent, and then I would pay half of the first month's rent for placement, and
Mm.
that worked out for about a year, and then I was kind of ready to do it myself. I think obviously are a lot of problems you can run into with renting to people. Um, I think the most important thing is, having your criteria known and understood and not deviated from. So you'll have a lot of applications come in when you go to rent something. I want consistency and stability, which means somebody's paying me passively every month. And you'll find out that if you accept a deal where somebody's going to pay you a large chunk up front to live in your house, you're going to get to, the end of that last month that it paid for, and then they're not going to pay the next month. And so finding somebody who, I'll go back, establishing the credit score, establishing your income requirements. And when we talked about the agent, it was somebody who you got along with. That's the same thing I look for with tenants. It the biggest thing, the best thing I can do when I go to rent a unit is meeting that person face to face, because you can get a lot from a person and their body language when you speak to them. An application and income and all that stuff is one thing, and it's a big portion.
Yeah. So doing a lot of this management yourself now,
Yep.
you've got 6 units, one of them you're in, or is it seven? Sorry. I know you said there's technically a fifth unit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I have seven,
Yeah. And you're in one of them.
and I'm
So
in
you
one.
have
So
so you have 6 units paying.
yeah.
Are they all occupied right now?
So one of them is not
Oh,
occupied.
that's right. You're
Yeah.
renovating.
So I have,
Yeah.
yeah, five.
Yeah. Awesome. Dude, that's great. So thinking about what you talked about with 60 units and you have room to have lower spread essentially.
Sure.
Um, I'm curious, like, what does this look like for you over the next 3 to 5 years? What's your long-term goal here that you're trying to get to? Are you trying to build that real estate portfolio up and continue doing this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I want to have as many as I can. Um, and that's probably everybody's answer, but I want to, I guess, you have to do the math and figure out, if you had $300 a door per month, or you had $500 a door, how many doors do you need to live the life that you want to live? And I think that's your number,
Sure.
and it's different for everybody. And some people
Yeah.
want more and want to have their Lamborghini or their whatever, and some people want to have 10,000 or 8,000 or 6,000 a month and do like travel cheaply and live cheaply, and they're happy with that. They just want to be free of kind of that having to work feeling in the back of their
Sure.
mind all the time. So
Yeah.
it's very dependent. But for me, it's much more than $10,000 a month for sure. So I what I've come to know is that um, I think the properties are what are going to give you the stability, but Increase in income is really the most, on my side, is really the most important thing that I'm focused on. Um, I'll buy more properties when I have more income, but when you don't have the income, then you're stuck not buying properties. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious along your path here. So you said you were in the Navy for 8 years. Is that right?
yeah, 8.5.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for your service, first of
Thanks.
all. And I was just thinking through this, like between your time in the Navy, going through having a business, a separate business operation, being an agent, doing these unit renovations and acquiring uh, your properties. It wasn't all like sunshine, right? And like like what kind of challenges did you run into?
A million of them. Just, I mean, um, a whole bunch. From I've learned a lot about partnerships in business. I've learned a lot about myself, both the military and building the business. I was able to learn my limits of what I can do, and the things I thought I needed, like sleep, I didn't need as much as I thought. And so I've looked at it as they're all growth opportunities, no matter what happens. And for a lot of entrepreneurs or investors and things like that, like you are going to run into a lot of challenges. Um, like I just had burst pipes like 2 weeks ago in
Sure. With
several
all the
different
ice.
units that I had to
Yeah.
fix, and so you will always have those things. But looking at them as learning opportunities and ways for you to grow, I think is the smartest way you can handle any challenge. Um, I mean, even when the business partnership went bad and I ended up exiting, I was mad for a really long time, and I still probably am a little bit. But how else am I going to look at it? You know what I mean? Like if I went my whole life looking back at all these things that I've gone through and just being upset, I'll never get anywhere. And so, yeah, I mean, just realizing that as you go through these growth cycles in your life and trying to build yourself into something more that you are going to get knocked down. It's going to hurt probably. And yeah, the sunshine and rainbows probably comes a bit later after
Yeah.
you go through all of it. So
Yeah.
just keep your eye on the ball in the long term. But um, yeah, I mean, in terms of personal challenges, it I've had a lot of stress on my marriage for sure. Um, and working through those things and becoming stronger together, as well as financial. I mean, we've been super close sometimes on payments and juggling. I mean, I had never juggled if I should pay a mortgage or a utility bill before, and so that was a bit eye opening, and but the long term is going to be worth it for sure. And I know that. And that's why I made the decision to do it in the first place. And so just,
Yeah.
just reminding myself of that, sometimes is important to stay on track but, not shying away from those things either, being willing to grow from it and learn. It's
Totally.
it certainly kept me mentally stable for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, you have to be rooted in that decision that you made, and you clearly understand the long-term play, because otherwise you would have quit. And
Right.
that's the only time you really fail, is when you stop doing something. If
Yeah.
you can find lots of ways to do something wrong, and then you find the right way to do it. And good for you. I mean, just overcoming challenges like that. I think you called out about having strain on your marriage. That's, I think, very common.
Right.
And it's very difficult to go through in the moment. But I did hear you say we're working through it together, and I think that's the most important thing. Is like you have to be really in sync and like communicate well and with each other and align those expectations and
Yes.
the goals that you're really after too.
Right. Right. You both have to understand what the vision is and be on board.
Yeah.
I've probably made several decisions, that have adjusted how I'm spending my time or what I'm doing, and um, you know, choosing to do an opportunity with somebody and things like that without being mindful and consulting her as much as I should, my lifelong partner. And so, um,
Yeah.
yeah, but she's been a rock and been amazing, and crazily supportive of me this whole time, through thick and thin for sure. So,
Yeah. Shout
that
out to all the supportive partners out there.
shout, yep, yep. In the times of trials, they're still there.
Yep. All right, man. Well, we're coming up on time, and it was great kind of understanding a little bit more about the agent side for sure, and then really awesome to hear about what you're doing with your rentals right now. I think that's something that can be done by an average person.
Yeah,
It does take time and focus on what you want to get out of it,
yep.
and it is possible. I think that's the whole point of this, is showing what things are possible. So I love hearing your story about how you got there. I do have one more question. I ask just a random question to everybody at the end.
Okay.
So for you, if you had a choice to move anywhere away from, like anywhere in the world away from Bremerton, Washington, what's the location you would go to?
Wow, that's a tough one. Well, I have seen a lot of beautiful pictures of Switzerland, I will say. So maybe there for a little bit. I'm, but I'm not sure. I think I don't even know if I'd stay in the U.S. I
Yeah,
don't know. But yeah, I'll try Europe first.
sure. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. People ask me sometimes, and it's a really hard thing to think about, especially if you have family. Like, it sounds like you grew up, or you didn't grow up in Bremerton, did you?
I did not. I grew up in
Oh,
Sacramento.
okay.
Yeah.
But you've been there for a long time. So,
Yeah, since 2015.
it's definitely, yeah. So, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, people ask me all the time. I've been in Portland my entire life, so
Hmm.
it's a really challenging thing to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went to Portland once. It was really nice, but that was before. That was enough back that it was nice back then, and I think there's probably some places that are still nice, but it seems a little
There's
crazy
some
now. I don't know.
there's some pockets, but there's also,
You're like,
you
there's
know,
places I stay out of for sure.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, Corey, thank you for jumping on and walking through everything. It was really, really fun getting to talk to you and learn a little bit more about what you're doing.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And for the listeners out there, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Sounds good.
See ya.